It'd be lovely to read all these things that are coming out of Rome in a really, nice way, so we can say it's orthodox. But my problem is, I can't just, if I were to say that, for example, Francis, when he said all religions are roads to heaven, back in September, if I was to say, yeah, that's orthodox, that can be seen in an orthodox way, at some point, some pope might say Jesus is God in a certain sense, because God's inside him and inspiring him, like Hans Kung would say. And if a pope says that, I must then say, no, this is not true. Now, if I must say that, then there must be a standard of orthodoxy which I can measure the pope's words against, because we had 19 centuries of orthodoxy, so I should be able to know. It isn't that I would say to the pope, everything the Pope says about faith is automatically true because the Pope says it. I mean, that seems to have been, well, we've had John the 22nd in 1331 to 1332, that winter. He taught that when we die, we don't have the beatific vision immediately. The University of Paris really challenged him on that, and the Franciscans, I think, and he backed down.
He
backed down, yes. So you see, you can have a pope teaching error. You can have that, or teaching something which isn't quite right, like Pope Erroneous. But then again, he was misled by the Patriarch of Constantinople in the letters that were written to him. So fair enough. But Pope John the 22nd was not misled; it was his actual view. So, but he was teaching still not for the whole church. It was teaching in the Diocese of Rome, but it was his view. So he can be wrong. Now, the Pope was speaking to a bunch of young people in Singapore. The problem is everything gets broadcast now.
Well, that's a...
And therefore we can get confused. We can think, because it's broadcast, it's teaching for the whole world. No, we have to distinguish. Teaching for the whole world comes in an encyclical or a papal bull. So we can, I think, legitimately say, Francis, you were wrong. But we've got to be careful, of course, because if we go too far, we're then in the realm of being Protestants, that we're making our own decision.
Well, Paul was complaining to Peter. Paul went and complained to Peter.
Yeah. In Galatians, yeah.
So I think it's our duty to complain.
But then, that'd be like me saying to Benedict, you should not go into mosques. You should not go into synagogues. Or me saying to John Paul II, you shouldn't gather all the pagans together in Assisi.
That's fine. It's different.
It's kind of like that, because you see with Peter was not teaching falsity about the faith. He simply was deciding not to eat with the Gentiles. It was an attitude, it was a practice that was wrong. That's where I compared Benedict and John Paul II's actions. This, though, is different from what Peter did. This is actually teaching contrary to the Catholic faith when you say that all religions are roads to salvation.
If you make it into a dogmatic statement, that would be wrong.
Yeah. That would be supremely dangerous to the Catholic faith, because when it becomes a dogmatic statement, then I'd have to say, well, he can't be the Pope, because a Pope cannot make statements contrary to the Catholic faith, because they never have made dogmatic statements contrary to the Catholic faith.
Contrary to the rule of faith.
Yeah, because that would be because Christ said the gates of hell shall not prevail, and he will strengthen his brothers in Luke 21, I think. So the Pope cannot make ex cathedra statements that are erroneous. And so if you do that and you're dressed in white and you're saying it on the balcony, you're not the Pope. You can't be.
No, there is a saying by a sort of anecdotal a little bit that if the Pope should pronounce officially the heresy, he would have died the previous evening.
Yeah. So he was prevented from doing so.
That's a little bit.
Yes, but we could potentially have men, because like in the Great Western Schism, not the Great Schism of 1054 with the East, but when we had the time of 3 popes in the 14th century, 3 claimants to the papacy. You could have a claimant who would say, Donald Duck is God, but he's just a claimant. But many cardinals were accepting this particular claimant. So we can have men who appear to be the Pope, who we know aren't. There are many anti-popes in the history of the Church. So they could pronounce dogmatically false statements. But we know so that's a sign that in the church's history, there are men who appear to be popes at certain times who aren't really. Then there are popes who are really popes but can make false statements or ambiguous statements, but they're not dogmatic, not the level of dogma. And we just have to see what happens with either Francis in further statements or his successor, if there is one. If the big cataclysm that I believe is coming doesn't happen soon,